I am saying this, I know it's being recorded, and I want anybody who cares to contest it. If but for Godwin Obaseki, this monarchy would have ended in 1897. Do you understand? Because that history, that institution was there before us and will be there after us. It is the institution, not the person, who will protect. You understand? So I will not support anybody exchanging words, and it
will be good for you to look beyond your office, because you are not going to be there all the time. It's good to look beyond. You see the elder statesman there, Chief Odigi Oyegu, was once a governor. He's not anymore now. Everybody knows that it's transient. Everybody knows. But you look beyond. Look at the bigger picture. Look at how one day you can also sit and be, when you are no longer the governor, everybody can still give you respect. More respect.
Okay, yes. Those state people and Nigerians, greetings to you all, and welcome to this broadcast. My name is Comrade Lamte Orehi, and of course, this is the Comrade Show. Governor Obaseki, Benin Kingdom, and the Grand Conspiracy is what I've titled this broadcast. And I want to appeal to you, if you are joining me, this may take a little while, to get done with, because I have a few things to talk about here, particularly looking at the recent developments. Governor Obaseki has been, organizing town hall meetings and, of course, visiting Edos in the diaspora. I have not come to vilify Obaseki, not to sing his praises. Neither have I come also to be the mouthpiece of the Palace of the Oba of Benin. I am doing this broadcast because I believe that it is good, as a Benin man, first and foremost, to try to, lend my voice, set some records straight. And of course, as much as possible, put this out there as a document that people can also refer to, maybe, and of course, have a more balanced standpoint because of, all that has been happening. All that has been happening has sort of, influenced opinions, and people have taken different stands, as it were. There are so many that are, sympathizing with Obaseki, some sympathizing with the government of Edo State, with the Benin monarchy, and all of that. I mean, there's been a lot. But one thing that has remained constant in all of these is that Edo State people are very divided now, particularly the Benins, because of the trajectory of things. And I have not spoken all this while because I was trying very consciously to do some research to understand what is happening. Because somehow I tend to have developed something. When anything is happening, I tend to want to ask myself a very fundamental question. What is the purpose of this? Why is this happening? And that fundamental question is what I've asked myself in my sojourn to try to understand, what many may not see. But a lot of people have been very emotive. Personally, I've gotten calls, I've had conversations, I've gotten messages, and, but over and above what is happening, there is a grand conspiracy. And I'm going to appeal to you to just listen. If you can share this program, I would appreciate it. So that we begin to understand the standpoint of everything that is happening. Because sometimes when there is smoke and we don't see the fire and we make judgment based on the smoke without understanding what is setting the fire, then our judgment sometimes may become highly unguided. And we have seen that in practice with a high level of disrespect being expressed publicly by Edo's sons and daughters. And that has led to huge division, everywhere. I would like to go back a bit into history. And of course, I'm also going to use the British monarchy, for instance, as an example, because exactly what was happening, with Britain at the time of global formation, the same was happening across Africa, vis-a-vis the Kingdom of Benin. This is where whatever you are seeing right now started from that era. And of course, Obaseki has publicly made statements in the course of his sojourn, in all of these visits. And some of those statements, I have had to ask questions into some of those statements, which we are going to try to resolve here. Now, previously, the first recorded, a British prime minister is a man called Robert Walpole. He wasn't called prime minister then, because the term prime minister evolved over time, but he was a principal minister. He governed Britain in the 1730s. But prior to that time, the United Kingdom, the British people, they were governed by the British monarch. The monarchy was the head of government. And in the course of the evolution of the time, as it were, the United Kingdom fought several wars. There were several moments where, different members of the family fought, to become the king of the land at the time. And there were wars always fought, that were always fought between family members and all of that. There's so many wars, you can name them. I mean, one of the most popular wars in those days was the War of the Roses, between the House of York and that of Lancaster. But apart from that, there's the war, the Battle of the Hastings, the Battle of Waterloo, and all of that. A lot of these wars, they were fought because the United Kingdom was undergoing formation. And for the past 100 or 200 years, they stopped. And the British people acknowledge very strongly that there's one monarch that they have. Currently, we have, King Charles as the king of the land. Now, there's a long history of this monarchy. Now, before we had a prime minister, like I said before, we had Robert Walpole in the 1730s. He was actually appointed by King George I, because at the time it became very complex for the monarchy to start to govern the people. And so King George I appointed Walpole into different positions, but King George II came and actually now gave him the mandate to oversee the British people on his behalf. And that is why they call the prime minister, the Majesty's government. The government of Britain is actually the monarchy's government. It's the Majesty's government. So they will always report back to the Majesty what's happening, because they are governing the British people on behalf of the monarchy. Now, while Britain has actually passed through different phases to now have an established monarchy in place, the same thing has happened across different parts of Europe where you have monarchy. The same thing, probably about the same time, if not earlier, was also happening in kingdoms across Africa, notably Benin Kingdom. Now, many of you may be familiar with the Ogiso dynasty. We had a number of Ogisos that reigned as Oba of Benin, as kings of the Kingdom of Benin. And at the time, there was nothing like democracy. The only thing the people knew as their government, though people knew, and the Benin knew, the Kingdom of Benin knew, was the Oba, the palace. And there was a hierarchy of governance, from the Oba to the chiefs, to the Inigies, to Odionweres, to Igbamans, to, there was that hierarchy. Benin Kingdom was governed in a pyramid style, with the Oba standing at the top of the pyramid. Now, in the course of the Ogiso era, at some point, many of you may be familiar with the story, where the last Ogiso we had in the kingdom, Ogiso Owodo, had no child. You understand what I'm saying now? But had one son, and something happened according to the history, in Benin, that made the Oba send that son away to be sacrificed. But as fate would have it, somehow that son moved far into the western part of today's Nigeria, and that son became something great elsewhere in Ile-Ife. Now, so the Beninese had a moment of interregnum and tried to build a case for the conspiracy we have today that has led to so many matters right now. And so many lies have been told that are spreading. There was a moment of interregnum. And in that moment of interregnum in the kingdom, there was no king. The throne was vacant by the time the last Ogiso Owodo passed on, because the son had been sacrificed, so to speak. But that son actually, was exiled by those that were asked to carry out the sacrifice. Now, there was a man, very prominent man in the kingdom. His name was called Evian. The Beninese looked at the exploits of Evian, who was a very strong warrior, who, as a matter of fact, defended the kingdom against a very dangerous animal that was coming, to disturb the people. And because they saw his strength, saw him as a defender of the people, the chiefs at the time came together, according to history, to ask Evian to be the leader of the kingdom, as what the Beninese we call a dayi, to be a placeholder until they are able to resolve the issue of the next Ogiso, as the case may be. While all that was going on, there was politics reported. Evian, Evian was there for a while. Evian, in his old age, wanted his own son to succeed him. As a matter of fact, having his own son to succeed him became a matter that led to serious problems in the kingdom. Because the people who knew the history of Evian, they were still there. And they knew that Evian was not the right person to be the king of the kingdom, according to the Benin history. And at that point, emissary was sent. The information had come that the Kalade, the son of the last Ogiso Owodo, did not die. He's somewhere else reigning as, Oba. And somehow, emissary was sent again to go and fetch him. At this time, he himself, has established himself in Ile-Ife. And when the story came, well, of course, what he had to do was to send his own son down. And his son came, and of course, many of you can tell how the Oba dynasty, began from there. And the Beninese rejected that the children of Evian, would take over from Evian and all of that. And of course, they crowned, Oba Eweka the first, who was the son of Omononya that was sent from Ile-Ife. This is just a brief summary. Now, the reason why this story is relevant is because Evian is the great-grand ancestor of a certain family in the kingdom today that are laying claims, to what's it called? To the kingship of the kingdom. So, like I was saying, those state people. Now, that was a history, but the Benin chiefs came together, and of course, the crown. They know the history. They know who the lineage of the Ogiso is. And of course, Oba Eweka was crowned the first Oba of Benin. And ever since, there has been this law of primogeniture, which is from father to son. Okay? And that has continued on. And along the line of history, there's been moments, like every other kingdom, where there have been tussle, where there have been issues, where there have been this and there have been that. There's several moments reported and recorded, in history. I'm trying to remember a name very synonymous with Evian. Please, if you are there and if you know this story, you can put that information out there for me, because there's a particular family, I'm trying to remember their name right now, that also trying to lay claim to this throne, and that is where this whole matter is building from. That's why I try to say I want to establish first of all a historical background so that we know where the conspiracy is coming from. Now, there is a man called Arisco in present time. Arisco, I'm trying to remember the surname because this is the great grandson of Evian. Please, if you remember, just please, my thought is just getting a bit mundled. Please, just put the name there. Arisco. Don't remember their family name, because they are the ones right now laying claims to the throne of the kingdom. But while I talk along, I will remember the name shortly. So now, I need to get this, because this is where no, not your semi. Did you want call you want missing it now? Ogiamie, God bless you, my brother. Thank you very much for giving me that, Ogiamie. Thank you very much, Mr. Edubo. Yes. So, Evian is actually the very, recorded, so to speak. First, Ogiamie. He is the great grandparents of the Ogiamie dynasty. And because of that short spell that Evian had, now the children of the Ogiamie, since then, as history has recorded, and we now grew up to know, now started laying claim to say that they were edged out of kingship and that they are the ones who are supposed to be the Oba of Benin, as it were. But one thing, we were not there. We cannot really independently verify anything. But what we have is what history has told us. And what we can also, deduce is, what, deductive reasoning could also tell us. And one of the things I came up with, first and foremost, on the issue of this Ogiamie and all of these, because that short spell Evian had is the only recorded short spell, is that I am not sure that it is the Oba's family, that deliberately made themselves in the lineage of kingship. It is the Benin people who say, this is our king. And this is very important, because it's the same thing at some point in the British history that the people agreed after all of the talks of the same, this is our king. And that has crystallized and it has continued over time till present day. And it's going to continue many, many years more. For the people of Benin Kingdom, the people have accepted, irrespective of whatever anybody hold as history, that this family, is a family that we recognize as the kingship family, the Oba's family, from father to son. And the Benins have served along that line and protected the monarchy of the kingdom along that line. Beyond that, I came to also find that the Ogiamie family greeting, because I've spoken about this previously, that there's before the Western world came with the issue of passport, international passport and all of that, there's an established passport in the kingdom that has been with us for only God knows how long, probably thousands of years, And that established passport is that every family in the kingdom has a special greeting that is peculiar to that family. That when a family, for instance, greets Lamogun, you just know exactly which family this person is from. When somebody greets, Latose, Labieze, you just know exactly. And that identity is sacrosanct. Now, the Ogiamie family, they greet Lyre, and I've also tried to go and equally dig deep, but time will not permit me to speak on that. They greet Lyre, which is in no way related to the Ogiso. Now, originally, the Ogiso family, in fact, as a matter of fact, today, extended family members of the Ogiso, they greet Lyso. Okay? Now, I also found out in history that the first 13 Obas, including Oba Eweka the first 13 Obas after the end of the Ogiso dynasty, also greeted Lyso. The Oba who changed the course of that greeting to now become Lamogun was Obaewaye the first, Obaewaye the Great. And there's a history behind why the Oba's family changed from greeting Lyso to Lamogun. So when I've traced all of these, it becomes very difficult to actually accept. I'm not going to try to delve into whatever anybody's claiming, but this is what the available history has taught us to accept that the claim that Ogiamie is making, that they, have the lay claim to the throne, make any valid sense, so to speak. But that said, like I already established, the Benis have come to accept that the king of the kingdom is the Lamogun family, and that is where they worship. They have accepted, they worship there. A lot of history have been crystallized into the culture of the people and all of that. Now, I just want to leave that there. Now, moving on from there, there's also the history of, a notable Obaseki. Who, by the way, Obaseki was a title, at the time. A notable Obaseki in the time of Obavorane. Many of you probably know the history of Obavorane, who, because of the British expedition, the Oba was exiled, and a lot of things came out of that. Oaru, was a very good friend according to history, the recorded history, which is not even too far away. We're just talking of just about 100 years ago. And I was a good friend to Obavorane. You understand what I'm saying? And Obavorane, made him the Obaseki, which today has become the family name of the Obasekis. And according to the report in history, right, the expedition, somehow the report have it that Obaseki played a role that many saw as a role of betrayal that led to so many of the issues. And just like what happened in the era of the Ogiso dynasty, transitioning into the Oba dynasty, there was a period of that interregnum. Like I said before, somehow the British people entrusted the rulership of this kingdom into the hand of Obaseki Awo, right? And meanwhile, the symbol, the label of betrayal, was being stamped on him. The details of, all of that, many matters that may have happened, many of us may not be privy to what exactly happened. But what people, what records show was that he became the representative of the kingdom until, at such a time when Agwabasemi, the son of Obaewaye, was ready to take over his father's throne. But the role that Obaseki played all through the process, some of which I don't want to talk about right now as recorded in history, okay, gave a label of betrayal to Obaseki. And that has been a very serious matter until the last 8 years when Obaseki became the governor of Edo State. And somehow it felt like old wounds were being, recalibrated, and a lot of things started happening all over again to this present day. Right? Now, for those of us who have followed our history as, enshrined in our oral traditions, in the written books code now, and graven images and every other thing, okay? It is important, to also observe that many of us believe that individuals, are different from the way they process things and the way they act and the way they do things and every other thing. But the label of betrayal that was stamped on our Obaseki, that seemed to be a symbol that has symbolized the Obaseki, so to speak, in quotes, because I know a few Obasekis, that are very, they're very, right people. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not here to give a general label to all Obasekis. I think that there are so many Obasekis that that are spot on. But that said, the reason why this Obaseki matter came into the picture is because there was a statement made by the governor of Edo State, and I'm going to play that statement so that we start, go into the issue of the grand conspiracy in all of these matters, so that we understand where some matters are coming from. Because Obaseki has said a lot in the course of this sojourn across different parts of Europe. Now, this is what Obaseki had to say.
I am saying this, I know it's being recorded, and I want anybody who cares to contest it. But for Godwin Obaseki, this monarchy would have ended in 1897. And if not for, because I belong and I am a Benin man, and I said nothing must happen to the monarchy. If I wanted, like some crazy politician.
Okay, it says something later that would be relevant to talk about in the course of this broadcast. Now, the principal thing he said here is that if not for his own great-grandfather or grandfather, as the case may be, Godwin Obaseki, that the Benin monarchy would have ended in 1897. Now, why this statement is, I consider it dangerous and bad, because Obaseki is a very skillful man. Current Obaseki, former Governor Obaseki, is a very skillful man. And he's also very, very intelligent. We can't take that away from him. And currently, he knows how to play on the media. And also, with all due respect to everybody who has, listened to him and assimilated and took what he has said on board, and I begin to react to what Obaseki has said without questioning. Because he also understands that we have a lot of people who live in diaspora who just get carried away, who really cannot or do not have the capacity or the propensity to be able to ask questions. And so some people have run away with this to try to change the historical narrative. And I also understand too that, as an Obaseki, it's also good probably to defend your heritage, defend yourself, defend your family, and every other thing, and all of that. So I am not here to say Obaseki is lying here or not. But a few things will come to mind. When you make a bold statement to say, if not for our Obaseki, based on what we know in history, that this monarchy would have ended, I think that is fallacious. It's insidious. It's very deliberate and calculated. Obaseki does not do anything without planning it out. Now, the reason why I say so is this monarchy had already existed for hundreds or maybe thousands of years before 1897, before this issue of expedition that came up. This monarchy had faced challenges previously. And the Benin, in the time of the interregnum between the Ogiso dynasty and the Oba dynasty, when Evian was there, the Benin resisted the continuity of Evian as the Oba of Benin and went to bring a direct lineage, a direct son of the Ogiso to become the Oba of Benin. That was the most difficult era for the kingdom. Not even the expedition, because when the expedition happened, the Oba was there. And of course, when the Oba was exiled, the son was there. You understand the picture from saying? Most of all, the Benin who fought and died, and those who were alive, knew that the Oba had a son. So the fallacy to say that if not for Obaseki, the monarchy would have ended, I think should be debunked seriously. Now, that said, the question I've also asked myself is, why is it that it is Obaseki that this whole matter and this label, relates to? Why is it that Obaseki is the man being talked about in history? There were other prominent chiefs in the kingdom. You understand what I'm saying now? Why was this label? You understand what I'm saying now? An Obaseki label, our Obaseki label. Why was it not only her, for instance? Why was it not any other person, any other chief, so to speak? There are so many chiefs. Why was it not Obariasi? Why was it not Elaho? Why was it Obaseki? Now, the people of that era, they knew what happened. They knew the role Obaseki played. And they are the ones who assessed what had happened. Today, we can look at this matter as a subject of history and tend to, because we not did there, it not happened to us, it was a grave matter that interrupted the existence collectively of the people. It was a great matter that probably was intended to exterminate or annihilate a people. People died in the course of that war. There were prominent Benin generals who stood their ground. The kingdom, they set fire everywhere, according to what was transmitted from those who lived to those who were born later onto this generation. And so the people of that era, not just it wasn't just from the palace that this issue came from. And that's why I had the question, why was it Obaseki that was favored by the British? What was the connection between Obaseki and the British people, to the extent that the British people were the ones who actually made him heir of Benin Kingdom, according to some reports that appear to be valid? There was a number of developments between leading to the time and the British people that made the Beninese to suggest that there was an act of betrayal on his part. So for Godwin to make a statement like this, that if not for our Obaseki, there would have been no monarchy, I honestly think that is a big lie, and nobody should take that seriously. I've only tried to look at valid reasons why that cannot be true. Now, that aside, the fundamental question I've asked myself in the course of Obaseki's sojourn, because there's a lot of damage that has been done, and I hope that eventually, the damage being done, will at some point begin to get, corrected. And for some of us, there was no way we were going to, sit by without, looking at this matter, because, like I said earlier, the question I'm asking is, what is Obaseki's mission? The only other time Governor Obaseki did this, this interaction between himself and those in the diaspora, most especially, because right now, that is the demography that he can reach because of internet and a lot of other things right now. The only other time he has done this was when he was running for his second term to become governor of Edo State. After all he did under APC, crossover to PDP and every other thing, and he had a lot of sympathy. And he saw this demography as a powerful demography. And the demography, the Edos in diaspora is a very powerful demography. I played my own role in helping him reach this particular demography, and it was successful. Lots of people play their own roles. It was successful for him to make him become the governor of Edo State. Now, the purpose why he did that then was to win election. It was very clear. Now, the question I've asked myself now, what is the purpose of this now? What is the purpose of this now? This is where I want to start talking about the grand conspiracy that I don't want anybody to believe me. I just want to prop our minds so that we can all also think and ask relevant questions within ourselves. And I've not asked. You are no longer the governor. It's been 1 year plus that you left the office as governor. Okay. Yes, granted, the issue of MOWA has come up. Your name has been mentioned severally. And even at that, there are so many multiple ways to respond to your name being mentioned. But you chose a nomenclature. You chose a name to say you want to pay a thank you visit to those in the diaspora. And you timed it to be this time. But you left office over a year ago. Your thank you visit did not come when you were 2 months after office. It didn't come 3 months after office. It coincided with just a couple of weeks after, or in fact, just a week or two before the effort to try to inaugurate MOWA, and of course, after the botched MOWA inauguration by a process that many of us have not applauded as well. Now, because some of us know Obaseki, we've had cause to be close to him previously, and we understand, some of us understand the workings of this man. A very calculated, man. So when I ask myself the question, I say, what is the purpose? Why is he doing this now? And the answers are not far-fetched. Okay. One is, I see a man who is very angry and probably also regretting why he did not take further steps to interrupt the process of the monarchy in Edo State. Want to just listen. Just want to analyze something. Now, let's recall when Governor Obaseki was governor of Edo State, for the first term, major part of the first term, the beginning of the first term, he had a very good relationship with the Oba of Benin. The Oba paid him a visit, as a matter of fact, to jumpstart the process that will be progressive for the Edos. As a matter of fact, there was something that is remarkable that they both did. The Oba made a pronouncement on, was it these people that were selling land or something that time? They were just selling land indiscriminately, and for the guests that were being trafficked abroad indiscriminately. And Obaseki's government, swung into action, made relevant laws to outlaw some of those things and all of that. And we began to hear of museum only when the Oba first visited him to tell him, according to the Oba later, to tell him about the wish of his own father and fathers before him to have a Benin Royal Museum. And Obaseki thought that this would be a fine legacy that he would leave behind. And let's not take anything away. And I've said and I've praised him that the brain behind building of MOWA is ingenious. There is no taking that away from the effort he put in there. However, my research found out that while CDA, God bless you, my friend, for teaming that CDA. They banned the CDA, but it started from the Oba outlawing the matter and Obaseki, and then there was a harmonious working relationship, and many of us were very, very hopeful and were very pleased. Now, when the issue of the artifact came up, Obaseki here promised the Oba of Benin that he was going to build a Benin Royal Museum. Okay? And I came to discover that at some point, Obaseki now set up something called the Legacy Trust. And his own boys were the people fronting the Legacy Trust as an organization to be used to negotiate the return of Benin artifacts, negotiate sponsorship, negotiate so many things. And the Omonoba, according to sources, the palace was not carried along. And that is where the palace began to suspect what was going on. And what I later found out, according to some inside source, was that the goalposts began to change. By the time the Oba asked to say, no, the way you are going now, I don't understand. He now kept the Oba out of communication until the Oba made a case to the former president of Nigeria, President Buhari, who now gazetted and said, every Benin artwork that must come to Benin must be under the custody of the palace. And of course, the federal government was to hold those artwork on behalf of the palace, hoping that when the Benin Royal Museum is completed and built, the matter will now be rested there. Now, the game plan changed, and Obaseki talked of a MOA, which became also public, and that raised a lot of dust about everybody was waiting. But the issue was, the game plan was that at some point, Governor Obaseki was going to be the head of the trustees of initially was going to be the head of the trustees of the Benin Royal Museum. If that became a reality, he was going to become the trustees, and that would give him further relevance even after being governor of Edo State. He was not willing to run for office of Senate or any of those things, but he wanted to become an international personality, which the Benin Royal Museum, if it had followed through with his own plan, would have given him the leverage to become. He would have been the head of the trustees of the museum, helping to negotiate further deals and becoming so much more powerful, so much more relevant, as it were. So he saw that ahead. And so when the Oba's, rejection of what he was doing, even without the palace even knowing what the end game plan was, he changed the goalpost and called it a MOA. And he chased the election of Asu Ighodalo assiduously. As a matter of fact, there was a point where he said it is a do or die affair. But if Asu had won, all of these conversations would not have been on the table. If Asu had won, Obaseki right now would have been the head of the trustees of the MOA. The name probably would not even have changed from a MOA to the current MOA. It is because Asu lost the election. They now removed the Edo inside. It has changed it from the Royal Museum to Edo Museum of West African Arts. They now removed the Edo and now become Museum of West African Arts. As Asu lost, they changed the goalpost again. And they made Ian Acho, an Igbo man that is being reported, I cannot verify that independently, to be a member of his own company, to be the head. And the agenda was that if the thing was successfully launched and the MOA was running successfully, at some point, Obaseki will now be brought into the picture as the head of the trustees of the museum. And that would have given him leverage to now begin to internationalize himself using the museum. Because that museum is going to be, hopefully, a global brand, as it were. And that would be more relevant than whatever any senator or House of Rep member or whatever it is, but he would have become an international personality. Now, because that was truncated, that process was truncated and installed, and the government of Edo State is now looking into the dealings that led to the MOA and every other thing, for which I understand that the House of Assembly has even invited him to come and respond to some things. Obaseki became an angry man, and therefore, when I ask the question, what is the purpose of this? All of these things that he's doing right now. Because I've also asked that you governed Edo State for 8 years. But you have not gone to Oedo to go and pay a thank you visit to them, or to Nwode, or to Isako East or West, or to Onwa East or West. You have not gone to Edo Central to go and pay thank you visit. But the people that you can reach currently are those in the diaspora, because these ones can carry a narrative believing in you, who climb and sinker. And he has said so many things, and people have clapped. Some have said, yes, believe that what he has said is the truth. But some have some records coming out. I don't want to go into the financial, misappropriation as some government is claiming. But reports coming out from that angle, suggest that all of the things he said he did transparently may not have been transparent after all. And for those who are also, who believe him to say that, oh, he's the best governor and this, oh, he made Edo State, this and that, go to Edo State, man. And the question you want to ask yourself is Edo State better off when Obaseki left than when he came in? I mean, just go and ask. Just go and find out. Now, this is on top of my judgment. I'm not discrediting him at all. I give him credit for a number of things in the state. You know what I'm saying now? But my judgment is always against the backdrop of how much money the government of Edo State under his administration received, against the backdrop of the things that we can see. Obakawaye Transport Hub, the renovation of Ubemudia Secretariat, the renovation of a stadium, the attempt to fix some roads that got bad even before he left office, and lots of things like that. But most of all, I still will give him credit for the execution of the MOA structure. I think it's top class. I can't take that away from him, and I salute him honestly for that. Now, there were other things that some of us even campaigned with. Osimo Power Plant, we were told it's our own. He told us it was our own. We now find it's not our own. And that, as a matter of fact, under his reign, a lot of money is being paid to Osimo Power Plant. And I don't want to, the figures coming out, they are treacherous, they are dangerous, they are too heavy for the ear. Is it the ones that have come out for how much they have spent on consultancy, on things that were never realized? Or is it how much money some figures have come out about Gelegele Seaport that we were told was going to be running before he left office, and today that place is like sawdust? And so many other things. That today there's a report somewhere I saw earlier today. I cannot lay credence to that now because I cannot verify anything to say that our former governor Obaseki right now, is currently ranked as one of the richest ex-governors in the history of Nigeria. That report was not there before he became governor. He was a rich man, yes, but that now is one of the richest. Or is it the report that we are getting now in some areas around there? Is it the one where over 1,000 hectares of land or so, as the case may be, was taken from the people, their farmland, and now they are protesting? Some lands were taken and given to Tesco. There are reports right now that we cannot confirm, but government say they have a report that he's a major shareholder right now, is the highest shareholder right now in Tesco. I cannot independently confirm that, but some of those reports are very troubling, which is why I would expect that His Excellency former governor, Godwin Obaseki, should go and present himself before the committee. That said, so I don't deviate too far, still on the question on why all of this now. Now, let's come down deeper into the grand conspiracy. Because another reason why this is happening is because I think there's a deliberate effort to reduce the potency and influence of the palace of the Oba of Benin that has been there for ages. I must establish something very clear here. And what I want to establish is that we have had so many Obas Obas will come, and when an Oba passes, his son will take over the law of primogeniture from father to son. We've had. So there are two things here. There is an Oba that is seated on the throne. But beyond the Oba, there is a monarchical system that has chiefs, that has enigis, that has got Igbaman, that has got so many things attached to it. And this structure has been there before anybody in this generation was born. And I think that there's an attempt now to decimate this age-long structure that has been of great pride to the people of the kingdom. So the effort of Governor Obaseki today is now making a lot of people unguided and possibly very ignorant cast aspersions on the palace of the Oba of Benin. Now, when they are casting aspersions, sometimes some even dare to even address His Royal Majesty Obayiwa II in very disgusting manner. And they are all deriving strength from the very way Obaseki has tried to address the palace. As a matter of fact, on one of those occasions where he was being interviewed by somebody, he made some statements. He said, "No be only you go to talk. More people should start talking. These people, they are not many. People should rise to confront them." And I saw an elder statesman trying to create insurrection in Benin Kingdom. Because at the end of the day, all Obaseki did in this inglorious sojourn of his was to set a roadmap for insurrection against the kingdom. Now, a lot of people are probably too young and too ignorant to understand a lot of things. But I'll try to make us understand a few things. You see, I consider myself as a child who was raised very well by my own father. I was raised with values, the values of hard work and integrity. I was not very fortunate to have met my grandfather, but I heard loads of stories about him. He was also different in a certain way from my father. My father was, a very calm, collected man, very transparent, very honest, he was a man of utmost integrity. As a matter of fact, I talk about my father the way I would talk about Jesus. I didn't meet Jesus, but I've read about Jesus Christ. And I think that another human being that I would liken to Jesus or to my father is my father to Jesus and Jesus to my father because of the way he lived. Absolutely on integrity. Absolutely. There was nothing taken away, anything away from that. But his father was a very proactive person. He was a no-nonsense person. Now, I don't have much stories about my great-grandfather. And the reason why I'm saying this is that for every Oba that has sat on the throne, their approach to governance is always different. Oba the First, the Great, was one notable Oba whose greatness was beyond the sky. Oba Ozolwa, his son was another warrior king that we had in the kingdom. And we had Obaseki, who was a very intelligent, very collected Oba. And we've had them all along like that. Now, that for me means that each time we've had an Oba, these are Obas that govern with different kind of disposition, following the rules of engagement. But their temperament may be different. Their approach to things may be different. And just the same way it is with the British kingdom. I lived in Spain a long time. You may consider me a Spanish Nigerian, as it were. And I also, because I'm very much interested in monarchical system of government, I also have, taken a close look to the Spanish monarchy. And at the end of the day, what I find is that just like people, children and their parents, sometimes children don't get to agree holistically with everything that their parents will do. But the parent is still the parent, and the child is still the child. In the Spanish monarchical system of government, they have a king. And some part of the Spanish people, do not. Yeah, Elliot. I say, yes, say la verdad. Muchas gracias, amigo. Now, some part of, like the Catalans, they are very much opposed to the kingship of Spain in Madrid, right? But even at that, because there is constitutional protection and every other thing, when it's time to do his ceremonial role, even in the land of Catalan, everybody understands that this is the king of Spain. Not because they all agree with the way some things go. Here in the UK, for instance, our King Charles, highly respected, not just in the UK, but across the world. It is not because everybody in this kingdom, United Kingdom, agrees with the approach of the king. As a matter of fact, in recent time, there was some dust. We had a Prince Andrew that was reportedly involved in some, very despicable, acts that he did not own up to. And that matter raised dust. It is the king's younger brother. For the second time in the history of the monarchy, Prince Andrew was stripped of his own royal duty. As a matter of fact, he was stripped of his own, priesthood, as the case may be, to become just an ordinary citizen without any role in the monarchy. All of that was done to his own brother by the king, because there is the need to not just present the monarchy, but of course to treat the British people, with some level of, respect. And the British people also know the line that this is our monarchy. And so, for us, you really hardly hear many things like the brazenness with which some Beninese, now some people, like some people, are now also foraging into this art of public show of disrespect, to the extent that all of this have not created friction, to the point that there's a huge level of disagreement right now amongst people that once loved each other. That people now start planning against each other. We are seeing fracas everywhere. There's a famous, inglorious, exhibition of slap and all of those things that some of us in our own quarters frowned at. That irrespective of whatever it is, this should not degenerate into acts of violence. But while that is happening, we are seeing a lot of display of show of shame. And I can tell you that what we have not seen may even be more. What may not have come to the public for may even be more. And I can tell you that The approach of Governor Obaseki, which I think is deliberate, is calculated, is collected, is helping to make all of these things fester. But some of us are not stupid. Now let's come back to another nitty-gritty inside the matter. You will recall that when Obaseki was the governor of Edo State, some group of chiefs, he talked about it in some of his, meetings. Some group of chiefs came, and what we got was that they were taking the palace to court. And somehow we saw a Governor Obaseki who seemed to be fanning that flame of discord. And I was perturbed. And in one of the meetings, speaking to that matter, he said that these chiefs wrote to him. He talked about how local government money is disbursed, and what is given to the palace is given to the palace, how he himself increased that which goes to the palace, and how since 2016 or so, if I'm not mistaken, how these chiefs had not been paid by the palace, and a lot of allegations like that. And these chiefs wrote to him, and he in turn, according to him, wrote to the palace. And because of that, he now wanted to, they took the palace to court and blah, 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 trying to give credence to, lay these allegations and give credence to them. And some people ran away with that. And there's been a lot of hula baloo, a lot of noise over the statement of Obaseki, without people even trying to make the effort to ask questions. When I heard that, I cringed a little bit. I cringed because I knew I wasn't going to rush into any judgment. And I asked a few questions. And one of these questions I ask is that there are a number of chiefs in the kingdom. They are running into thousands. There are a number of enigies. Now, when I was establishing the history of the kingdom, at a time, our kingdom was only governed by the Oba of Benin. There was no government. And the Oba's palace had an established structure that is a pyramid with the Oba on the head. The palace chiefs, the enigies designated to different places, the Odionweres, the Igbamas, the Yokos, the structure, the structure comes from one source and it goes down below. There was no democratic governance. The Oba palace and the Oba was the governor and the president of the people of the kingdom. That structure, even though democracy is here, is still existing. And for those of you who are Christians, this is why you must be very, very careful. God Almighty in the Bible did not even establish democracy. God Almighty established the rule of kings, for which somebody like King Saul was anointed king over Israel. And when this globe was forming, people were always led by kings and queens in some cases. People gave themselves leaders, not through democratic means, but through different things. The idea of democracy started evolving from the Roman classic tradition when they started having Greek city-states. I don't want to go into that Roman classic history. So that the idea of having a government, a democratic government, was an arrangement instituted by man, not by God. The arrangement endorsed by God is the rulership of kings. In the case of the United Kingdom, when it became too much to govern the British people, many, many years ago, King George I brought Robert Walpole, who was the first principal minister at the time. That was in the 1730s, to say, help me lead our people as principal minister. It was later, along many years, that now evolved. I think in one of those treaties of Berlin, that the term prime minister was used for the first time, and that would have been somewhere, around 18 something. And what I'm trying to say is that the structure that the Benin had with the monarchy to govern the kingdom was there already. It's been there. So every Enigye you see anywhere was not appointed by any government. Every Enigye was appointed by the palace of the Oba of Benin. Now, when you even move beyond the what's it called, our own, Benin city right now, you go to places like Delta State and every other thing. A lot of the paramount rulers you have, Olu of Wari, many of them, they trace their history down to the palace and how they were sent to go and govern where they not govern. Obi of Onitsha, is it Obi of Onitsha? No, then even of Iseluku. They all have their roots back to this kingdom. It is not an establishment of the federal government of Nigeria. Our democratic process came with our amalgamation in 1914. Until we now had independence in 1960. We now had our first prime minister. We started evolving. And one time we had a unitary system of government, a parliamentary system of government. But that did not change the internal structure of our kingship and the rulership of the king over the people. And there are still the vast majority of the Benin in the rural areas who, when they have issues, they don't go to court. They come to the palace of the Oba Benin for those issues to be resolved. Now, so when Obaseki now made this claim that these chiefs, they said they were not paid, blah, 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 blah. Now, the question I now asked was, because I wasn't emotive, I wasn't carried away, was, of all the chiefs and all the Enigies that we have in the kingdom, why is it that it is this handful, this countable number of about 11, 12, 13, or 15, I don't know, out of the thousands that are the ones who went to Obaseki and Obaseki gave coverage? And they had the effrontery to take the Oba to court. He argued like they did the right thing. I've almost said something. I think it was by Martin Luther King, if I'm not mistaken, who said, I hope I'm not mistaken, I think it's Martin Luther King, who said that in the last days, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. While those chiefs were busy dragging the palace, Obaseki was calm. Obaseki was quiet. The governor of Edo State, a governor you would expect that, apart from governing the state, he is the chief security, the chief peacemaker. A governor who, if he had good relationship with the palace, could easily, when he even said he wrote a letter to the palace, I cringed. A man who could easily just go to the palace to meet the Oba, to say, Baba, what is happening? And even without anybody hearing, resolve the matter in a way that nobody. Now, earlier when I started, I made mention of one Evian who is Ogiamien. Some of us now later found out that even while Obaseki was governor for the second term, there are a few Ogiamiens who are, being very publicly despicable and speaking maliciously about the palace, lay claim to the kingship of the power, of the kingdom. And I've tried to say that, look, you will not be my king if I don't accept you to be my king. The Benin have already accepted that this is the kingship that we have. This is the monarchy that we have. If it wasn't the right monarchy, then they wouldn't be there. And things have happened, time have passed, this has been crystallized. And today, and this is where I want to particularly warn Edo State people, particularly those who don't know what is happening, who are misguided. A lot of the noise you hear around, oh, Obaseki was this, or oh, the palace did this, palace did that. A lot of people who are sponsoring, who are making all of those noise, are descendants of the Ogiamien. And when they are doing that, you, who is the son of probably one respectable man somewhere, who don't even know, will just series with them and you will join them. So at the end of the day, there is a conspiratorial arrangement, very insidious, to crash or reduce the power, the potency of our monarchy. And only for us to find out that why some of these characters are on social media always throwing jibes at the palace. These characters were accommodated even in government house by Governor Obaseki. They will publicly rain insults on the palace. And they will pay a visit to Governor Obaseki, who will give them shelter. Reports show that. In the history of the kingdom, there have been 4 families that have had issues of contention with the palace. When I mention the palace right now, I'm not just talking of the Oba who is sad at any given time. The palace encompasses the Oba, the chiefs, the Enigis, the villages. So there have been some 4 families that have had issues of contention. Ogiamia is one of them. Obanugu, Enoge of Umogunoha, is one of them. Eyase of Udo is another one. Though some of them now, Laura of Hussein is another one. Some of them now, they are not like active volcanoes, but they've had some issues in the past historically. The only active volcano we seem to have now is the Ogiamien family. But these 4 major families I've listed, Obaseki in his reign as governor, particularly in the second term, particularly after the Oba of Benin, went against his plan for the Benin Royal Museum, which he later changed the goalpost to a MOA and all of those things. Obaseki became public friends of these people, sending an eternal message, that many people may not understand. But again, I found some of these things highly conspiratorial to water down our monarchy. So it still comes back to the question I've asked. All of these, visit to this, visit to this, visit to this. More so when we heard that, in some of those meetings, some people, not all, you understand what I'm saying, had inducement, to be available, to make themselves available and all of that, just to make sure that point is being solved. And the question is, why this? Because Obaseki it's not out for a thank you visit. It's out to put a message out there, and of course to influence the people, and possibly, one would argue, to create insurrection in the land. So when I eventually started putting dots together, And I found out that, okay, I don't have anything against the Ogiamians. I don't at all. I have a few of them as friends. I don't at all. But I came to find out that there's a string of connection between the Ogiamians agitation and Obaseki's insidious acts to cause insurrection against the palace. And that string of connection baffled me a bit. And that's why I knew, okay. Now, when he made this statement, for instance, let's play it again.
I am saying this, I know it's being recorded, and I want anybody who cares to contest it.
I am contesting it because he said he wants anybody who cares to contest it. Listen.
If but for Godwin Obaseki, this monarchy would have ended in 1897.
That was very assertive in law, speculative, and it's a lie. And I've also established why that is a lie. You understand what I'm saying now? Now, I cannot independently verify to say that the stamp of betrayal given to our Obaseki over what he did with the British to ensure that what happened cannot happen. I cannot. I wasn't there. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I lived there in my previous life. You understand the people, but to say the monarchy would have ended, that's a lie. The son of the Oba, Obaseki, was alive. You understand the picture of what I'm saying? What's his name? The British favored Awo, but they also saw that there was no way they were going to make Awo the king of Benin because the people rejected. They were alive. They knew. They saw everything, and it's the people that stamped the act of betrayal, the stamp of betrayal on Awo Obaseki. Go ahead.
And if not for, because I belong and I am a Benin man, and I said nothing must happen to the monarchy. If I wanted, like some crazy politicians, to play politics and do what some other politicians have done with sort of tools in Nigeria, I would have done it and nothing would happen.
Now that is a threat. Now what he said he would have done, which he couldn't have done, which nobody would be able to do, is he would have deposed the Oba of Benin. Just like some governors have also attempted, or they have done things like that. They would depose some paramount rulers. But Oba of Benin is not a paramount ruler. I want us to understand that. So he would have done what some other governors have done, and nothing will happen. That's very rude, very, very, assertive. And I also have reason to believe that if it was within his powers to do, he would not have hesitated. But he couldn't have done that. It's not possible. Oba of Benin is not an appointed chief. He's the king of a people. Even though we have democracy, with a government unbelievably endorsed by Udazi, Akpama Oriole, Isaac Morioba. So you couldn't have been able to do anything concerning that. The most that you could have done is what you did. In the Bible, where or was it Isaac who said that it is the voice of Jacob and the hand of Esau. And I'm with Igbini Yobo. Like, but
Happen to the monarchy. If I wanted, like some crazy politicians, to play politics and do what some other politicians have done with sort of tools in Nigeria, I would have done it and nothing would happen.
You could see anger in his tone here and every other. You could see it, and it is part of the mission. Okay. To create this disaffection. Even as I speak right now, I know that many people, without due respect, pardon my language, are very shallow-minded and may not be ask your own questions. While I'm asking my own questions and responding to them, I've made some research myself. Now, on the other part that I left out of the matter, that I want to also, add to, that I've also, no question. You understand what I'm saying? Was when those chiefs were doing their charade and Obaseki allowed them, and there was court opening, there was a court session for a couple of times that, raised a lot of dust across the kingdom. It felt like, oh man, where are we going with this? Oh, this one is not going to end, blah, 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 blah. Surprisingly, Surprisingly, another person assumed office as governor of Edo State. And surprisingly, that matter just died a natural death. Like I was saying, there's already an established structure. A few chiefs, some people regard them as dissident chiefs, came to you and you gave them platform. You even tried to resurrect one 1975 Nini and all of that to try to, and that created disturbance. Now, his argument would have been valid on the issue of those chiefs if it was all of the chiefs and all of the niggas in the kingdom that came out to revolt, who had a handful of them. And as in fact, even as we speak, a couple of them or some of them have not turned back, retraced themselves, have not come to beg for forgiveness. While some others have been suspended. It is the palace, it is the Oba. I'm not sure it is this correct Oba, okay, that appointed these people to be enigias in their own locality. So their first duty is to the palace. And if there are any issues, just as there are always issues. The palace has a medium through which palace issues are resolved. That's beautiful Benin musician sang. Bomba me egwa no egwa wese. Bomba me do egwa wese. Iwina negwa ye ne do ye ne. Bomba me Mami bomba me bomba me do egwa wese. Egwa so agbina babi no ganya to bebo. Egwa no ihe abohi e yona. Omati government no. That's what the people were used to. That's what they knew. That is what is still happening today. That government don't even know or report. And every now and again, the palace is sending emissaries to places where there are arguments, where there are frictions, villages, towns, to go and resolve. And in some places where they have land disputes, the chiefs will go resolve the matter. They plant a hini tree there as a sign of the mark of demarcation. No government understands the meaning of Ihini. Ihini is still very relevant to the kingdom. So while democratic governance is doing what she's doing, our own traditional governance has also still remained, which is why an attempt to try to decimate this governance is honestly misguided. And of course, I won't be surprised, okay, as I've heard, even though I cannot independently verify, that even before Obaseki comes out, there are a series of meetings taking place, apparently, to try to discredit the potency of the palace. There was a statement he made, which some people have also, accosted me to and discussed with me on. I just take a listen to it.
It's really painful and shameful and sad, some of the things we're seeing. But that we cannot say because we are ashamed or we're happy with some behavior and utterances from the palace that we must now exchange words and say things about it. We should not. These two will pass. We will, by the grace of God, continue that institution. Nobody can stop it. Do you understand?
Now, this is a nice statement to make. But do you know that this statement he made here was just to satisfy, with all due respect, his ego, to satisfy himself in this environment where he was making this statement. Because before he came to this environment, he was at another forum where he was trying to encourage insurrection. And he was telling somebody to say, man, not be only you going to talk. Other people should start, many people should start talking. They should stand up to them. There are very few. In fact, one of the guys said, there are very few. We are going to deal with them. And there's another one, but I cannot clear all of the excepts where, of course, the government of Edo State, the House of Assembly has issued a statement that they should come so that they can come and look at some issues against him together. And he has said that they are threatening him that if he's going to Benin, where he's from, if he wants to go, everybody, are all not going to come with me? He has made so many inflammatory statements. But Obaseki supposedly is a statesman, an elder statesman, having governed the state for 8 years. And on top of it, the biggest, most unsettling conversation we have right now across Nigeria, and indeed our own Edo State, is the issue of Fulani herdsmen and the menace they are posing right now to the people of Edo State. Why that is going on? If Obaseki has held these meetings and his discussion was around what we would do to curb this menace, suggestions to the government. Honestly, my conversation right now will be a lot different from this. But rather, in one forum, he encouraged insurrection. At another forum, he's pretending to say, oh, we have to protect it. And even using very inflammatory statements, even if they want to destroy it. I'm coming to the end of this thing, but I did say that I was going to be a bit long. One and not say it long like this. Now, on the issue of artifact and all of that, is it not because there is a history of the kingdom that has become global? What was meant to punish or do evil against the kingdom has become a blessing to the kingdom. Thousands of artifacts were stolen and taken away, and now, because of the way life has evolved, we can now begin to request, and that's why now they are being brought gradually. And so Edo State, Benin City is on the map because of the artifacts that were stolen from the kingdom and taken away via the British expedition. If not that, would anybody be thinking of a museum in Benin Kingdom? I'm not sure that Delta State is thinking of a world-class museum right now. I'm not sure that some other parts of this Nigeria are thinking of anything like that. But we have a history. And that history is a collective history. And therefore, you now change the whole thing and created MOA run by a not Benin indigene. And all of that. And even when they are making the case, it's a private thing. The people going sponsored to go on television, to go and be talking every day. They pay thousands to go on television every day to be talking. They are saying Obaseki doesn't have a hand in it. Yet, not once did we see the people, the private owners of the MOA come on television and say, we are the owners, it is not Obaseki. If Obaseki is not the owner of MOA, as the case is, there's no problem. He has done his own. Let the owners come out and tell us who owns it. But we can't find them. But yet, people who serve under him as commissioners are the ones that they pay money to Arise Television to give them 30 minutes slot, 1 hour slot to be talking about these matters. There is a grand conspiracy that at some point, Oven or Gwalidagbo, it's always been like that. Oven or Gwalidagbo. Because I'm a Benin man, a son of the soil. I told myself that there is no way I don't marry her, I don't invite her, that I'm not going to talk about it because I have investigated enough. And now, my talk about this matter is not to vilify Obaseki. No. My talk is to speak to what the truth is in this matter. And I also hope that whatever may have happened, all of this talk here and there, I also hope that the palace will watch carefully and, of course, take note of what to take on board. Because like I said, there is no perfection anywhere. But any child who comes around and sees somebody slapping his father, and that child is asking, what happened? That child is a useless child. That child is a useless child. Say you come meet somebody, they was your father, they molest your father. When you come, they say, what happen? May they come baby explain. That picking are useless picking. Or when battle men were say, walk you as a child of the kingdom. We have a monarchical system of government that is sure to outlive every one of us as alive today. This system of government has been in place. I call it a government. Sorry, it's not. I'm not. It does not replace the democratic government, but the governance of our monarchy has been in place. Even though it's quiet now, democracy has taken over, but that government has been in place for time, from time immemorial. It will be shameful that, as a Benin man, a well-bred one, I would say, I will be quiet to see this affront. For the other people, the other chickens that are, it is the truth. Because what some of our young people have done, what has come out from their mouths against our revered palace, but I can tell you, it doesn't way I will not fear or by when. No fear or by when. Because when I listen to some of them and I hear them talk, man. Anyway, it is because it's Obaseki. That's why I'm talking. A man who was one time governor, who is an elder statesman, who now is the one that is instigating a lot of this narrative that is being prepared everywhere against the kingdom of Benin. And he's a Benin man. Aaron Bimwe or Dame. On a last note, before I round up this thing, because there's no way I can have this discussion without talking about Governor Bevoli. And without also blaming Oshomole. Now, this is the last phase of it. Just reason with me. Just you go think as well. You understand what I'm saying now? Because I mean, I'm not going to be laughing now. There's nobody in Yubo. We didn't know Godwin Obaseki. Nobody knew him until Oshomole came. When I were a Godwin here, Muna. Oshomole stood and actually infested campaign massively for him. I don't like Oshomole. You all know that I'm a critic of Oshomole. You understand what I'm saying now? I also thought that Oshomole, when he was governor of Edo State, he defied the kingdom. Seriously. You understand me now? Some people say he did well. For me, Oshomole did not do well in Edo State. But that's by the by. Even Oshomole is demon. Oshomole was God to Obaseki. He was his godfather. He cleared the way for Obaseki to become governor of Edo State. Now you ask yourself, as a child of reasoning, what would have happened for such act of betrayal from Obaseki against Oshomole? The man who just brought you from nowhere, made you become whom everybody now knew, made you governor single-handedly because he was governor, used his power, everything, cleared the way. Some people even argue that Obaseki did not win his first term. Now I cannot speak to that. I don't know that it was what was his name, Belebe, that won. I don't know. But Oshomole, we saw what Oshomole did. Now, all of us rose against Oshomole when it was coming to, when Oshomole now started, taking vengeance, and they expelled Obaseki from the party. I mean, they disqualified him from contesting the second term, and sympathy went to Obaseki. Obaseki made his way, went into PDP, and we could see, even if you're blind, you could see people like Dan Obi. They virtually made the campaign work for Obaseki. We need eventually that. How he got there, I don't know. Whatever thing they did to make him get admitted to PDP, got paid to PDP, and Edo State. All of us, we all got used to the process. We were used for him because we were very sympathetic. You understand what I'm saying now? And he won. Now let us assume that what he did to Oshomole was a mistake. Ask yourself. He did that to Shomole. When he got to PDP, he got the same ticket, the same narrative. He did the same thing to people like Danobi, took over everything. And everybody, all the political figures that we used to know in Edo State that stood to ensure that Obaseki became governor, he dislodged all of them. Because for him, I knew Lukoviyeke, he has to be the one who's standing alone. It may not make sense. You will love him too much to say, oh, he was trying to make sure that politicians don't steal from Edo State. But you go to Edo State after 8 years of governance. How much has Edo State changed from when he became governor the first time to when he finished the second time? I was having this conversation with somebody one time, and I told the person, Dubai, it took about 30 years for Dubai to become transformed. Today, everybody wants to go to Dubai. Take 8 years away from that, they are 30 years. 8 rubbish years. There won't be anything like Dubai. Take the first 8 years to be a rubbish 8 years. But I tell you, the first 8 years of Dubai's decision to say, we want to transform this city with a vision, set the landmark for the Dubai after 30 years plus that we see today. Monies came under this man's administration. He is smart, he's very intelligent. But go to Edo State and ask yourself, today, may his soul rest in peace. What's his name? Ogbemudia. You still go to Edo State today, you see the landmark of Ogbemudia everywhere. Everywhere you go. Now, that's on the part. You understand what I'm saying now? Try to establish who this man is. And for everybody that appears close now, do whatever they are doing, they are also going to regret. And some of them may even cry out later as time goes on. Because some of us understand this guy. He knows how to get what he wants to get. And what is happening right now is also very strategic. Before Obaseki became governor of Edo State, he knew many years before that he would command the state. He planned the process for it. Some of those things that is put together, they are not working right now, so he's angry. And therefore, because the palace is probably responsible for why they are not working right now, he's coming at the palace furiously. That is another reason why all of this is happening. And for some of us, we just want to set the record straight. And for the governor of Edo State, yet again, Ushomole will be mentioned, and the government of Edo State. With all due respect, I don't have anything against the current governor of Edo State. Not at all. Nothing at all whatsoever. Except that I still strongly believe that his competency to become governor, to be called governor of Edo State, is still a matter of huge challenge. I think he's a good man from the way what I've gathered about him and all of that. The process leading to his, election or pronouncement as governor of Edo State, his selection first and foremost to represent the party, and his eventual ascension to become the governor of Edo State today, and the way he has carried himself in the office so far is part of what is giving prominence to Governor Obaseki. That's the truth. And I think that the people who are working with the governor of Edo State, they need to sit down to lecture him seriously. Because a lot of things are coming out from his mouth that are just beneath what you expect of a governor. So at the end of the day, he is making Obaseki shine 1 year after office. And I don't blame the governor. It is the failure of his handlers. There are so many psychopaths and nincompoops around the governor whose presence are just dust, unexpected dust. If you have a governor who will raise the bar, it probably will be a different ball game altogether. I think that the proper handlers of the governor should repackage this governor and present him better. And they should focus on governance. All of this nonsense about Tinubu 2028, 4 million votes. You guys should talk to yourselves. And those people are not stupid, man. They're not. They're not stupid. But that said, if this governor, what he be name, what's his name, Ukbewolo, if he ends his governance today, okay, the man, as visionless as many people may think he is, okay, with that, what's it of those flyover that he has, put in Benin, and they're able to complete that, and he completes this thing today, the people will have something to refer to. Without making any comparison whatsoever, I think the government of Modukbewolo should look at the things that they think that Obaseki did not finish, that would be good for those people, and try to make sure that they do them and complete them. And a lot more for the government of Edo State. Try to tackle security, because right now it's encroaching and decimating everywhere. On a final note, just for me to end this whole discourse, because the Benin man says, Oboraya Gbovioma have a Yasiye Kegbe, I honestly appeal to all stakeholders, particularly the Palace of the Oba of Benin, to forgive. To forgive. Because I don't know how long this is going to go on for. Obaseki has erred. And I think now, what is most important is not out of vengeance or anything whatsoever. It is the strength of forgiveness. And I think Obaseki should advise himself. He should advise himself, because, he should advise himself. And I know that he knows exactly what he could do to ensure that things don't escalate, because things have escalated. Unfortunately, things may not have panned out the way they probably wanted them to, because the vast majority of the Benin people are still very much with the kingdom of Benin. And so the effort to try to decimate the palace and every other thing, is only being bought by misguided people. And I hope that he's able to retrace his steps. And if he did, he knows what to do. He knows what to do. And to lastly, appeal to all Edo indigenes, whether you are Esan, you are Fema, you are this, you are that. Benin's, Allah, let's not be emotive. Let's not be emotive. Obaseki speaks good English. He's very intelligent. He has spoken with his mouth, and all of you are saying, hey, you see, and you're making judgment and making different assertions. So nonsense. He has not shown you any document of things I've talked about. And at no point did he blame himself in any of these things. He has only pointed blames to every other person that he's against, apart from himself. In all of these matters, everything he's been talking about has always been how he was exceptional. How he was exceptional is exceptional. At the end of the day, you go back to Edo State and you ask yourself, now this be the Edo they live for us after all these years? Everybody's to be blamed apart from himself. And that's why I came out to say, man, look, he has a lot of blame to take. And if we start from there, we may start getting to the nitty-gritty of the matter. That said, like I said before, I have not come to say that the palace is perfect. I mean, the palace is perfect. I think that as times are evolving and development is taking place, institutions begin also to make adjustments. But Obama, all of these people, Oni of Ife, the other one, Sultan of Sokoto, this or that, those or that. You don't see their people come out publicly to come out. Do you think everybody around their kingdom is satisfied? Everybody have never been satisfied. But you don't just find their people come out and start making unguided statements. Hey, oh, nah. Hey, oh. Owo Boma, aya dole ni omo aye. Ukmowa, uwa, ana woye. The palace is our palace. Obima, maya dole. Anybody who not decide to not be an agent of destruction, there is no way some of us are not going to constructively say, oh, Erio, Oriba, Oriho. Ukmowa, uwa, ana woye. On that note, my people, I'll leave it now. There will be another episode. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to me. Please share the broadcast if you could. I would appreciate it. My name remains Ikmomusa Nobioriahi. No Yelanterio. God bless you. I will see you again. We'll see. Bye for now.
Stressing about how to send money home for bills? What if you could handle it in seconds? With Brisk VTU, you can top up airtime, pay for electricity, cable TV, and more. Right from your phone. No middleman, no delays. Just instant transactions at the best rates. Stay connected, support your loved ones, and enjoy cashbacks while at it. Download the app today. Brisk VTU. Fast, easy, rewarding.